Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, good everything. My name is Jason Weiss. I'm the host of the Ask Jason Weiss show. As you know, I am an attorney. I am also a coach. I am also a consultant. I am also a lacrosse dad. I'm also a husband. I'm also a cheer dad and lots of things. But what I am not today is your lawyer. So nothing I take today is considered legal advice. Should you need legal advice, financial advice, or any type of advice, do not rely upon anything that we're saying. No attorney-client privileges here. This is informational and entertainment only. With that being said, where I want to talk about entertainment and educational, I have with me a new friend, Connor Harryman, who is here with me today. Connor is a former D1 lacrosse player. So I think once a D1 lacrosse player, always a D1 lacrosse player. So we have that. And we have Connor, who is in sales. And we will talk about different sales, different things, how the economy is going. We will talk about maybe a little bit about tariffs, but we will not talk about politics because that's a no bad. Connor has played for multiple college lacrosse programs, and we're going to talk about that on the back side of the show. But again, today we're talking about different sales and how Connor's path got him into sales and what he is doing. So, and then we'll talk about how Connor and I met, which is all about networking and all of that. So without any further ado, we have Connor. Connor, introduce yourself. Say hello.
Hello, everyone. I couldn't be more excited for the opportunity to speak. Just want to give a little credit. The master networker himself, Chris Cousins, who was on the podcast a couple weeks back in February, wouldn't be here without him. He does it at amazing levels. He is the master networker. So thank you again, Chris, and thanks again, Jason.
And again, that just puts us through the whole idea of it's really not what you know, because you got to know something, right? But it's really not only who knows you, but who's going to go to bat for you. And that's really important because you could say, just for example, and I'm making this up. I'm drinking, it's called vintage seltzer, right? That's what I'm drinking today. So I could say, oh yeah, I know the owner of Vintage Seltzer, and he's a great individual, right? And he's a great guy, and he does great things in the community. But if I reach out to the owner of Vintage Seltzer on LinkedIn or through a text or through an email, and he doesn't acknowledge me, then what good is it? And I tell people that all the time. It's nice to have people in your Rolodex, but you really need to know who are the people in your Rolodex that are gonna pick up. And like you said, Chris is one of those guys, right? He'll pick up. He'll put you in contact with me. He'll put you in contact with this company, that company, and we would do the same for him. So, and I'm going to attribute that to, yes, upbringing, but also team sports.
Bingo.
So tell us a little bit about your team sports journey and how that helped you get to where you are today, assuming the obvious, which is you're here on the show today, and we got you through Chris, but let's take it where it got you in your career.
Perfect. So I think the best way to set the stage is really start from the beginning. So coming out of high school, I was never a highly touted athlete, no offers, no nothing. Had a real Jesus moment with my father in my sophomore year, where it was essentially the nut up or shut up and pursue your dreams with the passion that brings that purpose. So got specialized coaching, was on every travel program, did anything I could in my humanly power to play at the Division I level.
And this is still all while in high school?
Yes, this is all high school right now.
Got it. Okay.
So from that sophomore year on, I evolved into something much greater. My discipline towards my sports was no longer negotiable. And I think that's a key component that I'll bring up later, especially in sales. Do not negotiate with yourself, just like Kobe Bryant always says. So coming right out of my senior year, I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to Bellarmine University, which is actually where I met Chris Cousins. But I always had the dream of becoming a national championship being an All-American athlete, and all the extracurriculars like every other Division I, Division II, or Division III athlete. So performed very well my freshman and sophomore season. That led me to the opportunity to play at Towson University, where I played under Coach Sean Nadalin. That year we actually went to the Final Four and unfortunately blew a 5-goal lead to Ohio State, who holds a near and dear spot in my heart. Then I went to the other offer right after Towson, which was Rutgers University, where I finished out my career. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot view of my lacrosse career on the Russian roulette with schools.
So you went from lacrosse, graduated from, I think you went from Bellarmine to Towson to Rutgers, got your degree from Rutgers. And what year did you graduate?
So I took a victory lap. I was
Okay.
supposed to be in 2018. I graduated in 2019.
Oh, perfect timing. Right out of college, right into COVID, right? Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So you graduate, you're wearing your mask, and now I can poke fun at it, but back then it was serious. I mean, I had COVID. I'm sure you had COVID, but so you graduate and you're interviewing with masks on, and what got you, other than the mask on your face, what got you involved in sales? Like, did it just click and you said, I'm going to go to sales, or was it like, I got nothing else, I'm going to go to sales?
I think we can go a step farther back. So when I was young, I always wanted to be a physician, always wanted to be in healthcare. Specifically, when I was 10, I wanted to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. So highly acute clinical level stuff. Realized at Bellarmine, I may or may not have had the aptitude to balance the type of workload with sports. I was way better at sports than I was at school. But what I did realize was I was a very efficient communicator. I was very good at talking to people and really building relationships, where I think that old school sales mentality, which is it's all built on relationships, something we've mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast. So my father being in healthcare for 35 years was always in the sales service side. I confronted him and consulted with him, discussing where my career paths could hold. So throughout college, I worked in sales, healthcare companies, whether it was Siemens Healthineers, home health pediatrics, and a couple others. So I leveraged all those internships to get my first job out of college, which was in capital imaging. I sold capital for Delta Medical Systems. I sold capital at Delta Medical Systems, and that's right when COVID hit. So as a young sales rep, just getting your reps in, doing your cold calls, learning by being thrown straight into the fire, I learned very quick that it was hard to sell multi-million-dollar modalities when there are hiring freezes, purchasing freezes amongst all healthcare systems, especially in the New Jersey, New York area, which is where I resided at the time. So I think that coincides very well with the ups and downs of sales. So my first job was cut very short due to COVID. And that's what eventually led me to take an orthopedic trauma job for Smith and Nephew, which I did for about 3 years. That took me to Nashville in 2021. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Got as close as I could to the operating room, being in the operating room with the physicians, seeing the procedures, whether level 1 highly acute trauma or a broken pinky. So it was very cool to partially live that dream that I had as a little kid of being a physician. So I got as darn close as I could. But amongst that, you learn it's very hard to balance a trauma lifestyle. I was on call typically 14 straight days out of the month, 2-day break, then another 14-day stretch. So I only had a couple days off a month. I was on call whether 2 a.m., 7 a.m. in the morning, working 80-hour, 90-hour weeks. And I kind of had enough. I wanted to use this to leverage myself into a new career. I entered the diagnostic lab space for Path AI. They do pathology for gastroenterology and urology, which is my specialty. However, going again back to the ups and downs, I really love the mentor and my boss that I signed on to. That job began in February of 2024, and I was let go in May of 2024 due to a merger and acquisition. So I found myself as a waiter and bartender the very next day, something I've been familiar with in the past. And I think there's a little bit of divine intervention where the boss that I fell in love with, the mentor that I fell in love with, was actually brought on to the company that acquired us. He shot me a text and said, "You ready to do this thing again?" And then I found myself in the current job that I am now, August of 2024. And so I currently work for Quest Diagnostics. I do urology and gastropathology. Sorry, I want to make sure I say it so everyone can follow. Um, so we sell a service. We have the laboratory. We provide the testing kits. So we can give patients and physicians the highest form of care with 24 to 40-hour results, as well as the highest efficacy of testing.
Pretty awesome. So I mean, there were so many things that you could learn from that, right? Number one is, you don't give up. You take the lumps, and it's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's about how many times you get back up, how quickly you get back up, and how, when you get up, are you ready to go another round, or are you just getting up so you can stand there? So that's huge. The second thing is that you don't burn bridges, right? If you would have said, "Oh, screw this and up and F this and whatever else, and this is crap," and you would have stormed out, your boss, who's now, would have been like, "Dude, like, I saw a side of you that I didn't expect to see." So you got this guy who, was your mentor, and he settled in, and there was an opportunity, and if not the first, I'm guessing the first phone call made was to you saying, "Let's do this, let's go." What I found interesting from your story was that unfortunately, most people don't think like you think, which is like, "Hey, I don't have a job. Next day I'm waiting tables and I'm back because I've got to earn money." And in the legal profession, I saw it when people got laid off from various different state jobs, and during COVID, they got laid off from whatever. People were just throwing their hands up in the air and saying, like, "I don't know what to do," as opposed to, what you did, which was you went and worked, right? I had this conversation with my wife, way back when I first started practicing law, that I wasn't thrilled with what was going on. And it was like, well, let me take off a little bit of time and, soul search and do all this. And I still think that would have been a great opportunity. But she's like, "Yeah, you give yourself a certain amount of time, 20 days, 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is, and then you go find a job." And I was like, "No, if I take off the time, I'm going to go ahead and work at Home Depot or Lowe's, because I love gardening and doing all that. Or I'm going to go work at, an electronic store because, I knew a lot about, installations and that kind of stuff. I'm not just going to sit back and, relax. Like, I'm just going to go do something else because I still have an obligation to myself and the rest of the world to earn." And this is before kids. So I like that. That's really important, and I think that's lost on a lot of people. The going out and getting something in the meantime and not burning that bridge. That's huge. I guess the other thing is, sales go in cycles, right? You could see, but in the medical field, I'm guessing it's just like this, right? Straight up.
It really depends on industry.
Your industry.
Yeah, my industry has got long sales cycles, so it's constant up and down. You can lose accounts in about 20 minutes by a bad phone call. So it's really important, like you alluded to, the relationships. It's all about how do you maintain that, how do you not burn that, because you never know when you're going to help. And then another thing that I think, especially with the perseverance, I think perseverance and pride, people look together, but I think there's more of a contradiction between the two. A lot of people feel the pride coming from a highly top position, wherever they might have been, that they're above laborers work, customer service, and all those other industries. And what I think is really helpful to me is I don't look upon this stuff with ill will. I look upon it as, this is my saving grace. The fact that I can go in at my worst day, find a way to keep the lights on, food on the table, and being open with welcome arms. I actually maintained that job for 6, 7 extra months just so I could earn an extra little bit of capital to save up and put away. So it was a very cool experience because you kind of find out who you are as an individual.
And what do you attribute that skill set to? Did you learn it from your dad because you talked about him with having heart to heart as a sophomore in high school? Do you think you learned it at college? Do you think you learned it on the lacrosse field? Do you think you just naturally did it? Like, there's got to be a reason for like what happened. Like me, I could talk to anybody, right? And when I was a kid, my parents, we would go shopping at the mall, and next thing I'm making friends with 4 people, and I'm chatting with them. That was just me, because that's me. Where do you think you got that skill set?
Oh, I can pinpoint it. So I'm extremely fortunate. I grew up in a phenomenal household. And when I say that, incredibly loving, incredibly supportive. And the coolest part was my father is actually my hero. He's a complete self-made man, just like many others, had nothing. From the age of 8, he was on his own with a mom and a sister. He always told himself that nothing in his life was ever given or deserved. It is only earned. And then the other caveat is, don't let the dimness and darkness of the previous day dim the light of the new dawn. So
I like those.
Yeah.
So
it's my favorite quote.
So I like both of those. The first one is, and I instill this in my son, when he was, dealing with all the lacrosse stuff and all of that. And we don't talk about where he's at yet. We'll get there after May 1st. So we don't talk about that yet, because I know that you're involved in chatting with my son, and we'll leave it at that. That will leave off limits for the show. But I tell him all the time, when he was reaching out to coaches, his thing was not what can I do to be on your team, not what can I do to be a part of your team. It was, how can I earn a spot on the team? How can I earn the opportunity to be a team member? It was very, very, very unearned. And the other thing that you talked about was, don't let the dimness of the day before turn into darkness of the next day, or some sort of editorial content on there. A book I read having to do with football and sports and all of that was by Mark Noodleberg, who's been on this show in the past. And he has what he calls the 24-hour rule, which is basically, all right, you lose a game, you're the reason why it happened, you lost a sale, you got a flat tire, you broke up with your significant other. Like, you're given that time. You're allowed to mourn. You're allowed to feel down. But it's 24 hours, right? You go to sleep, you wake up the next day, and you got to do it. And that's why last night was senior night for my son at school. And the goalie said something that was huge, that goalies have to have short-term memories. Meaning, shoot, I let that goal go by from that kid on that play, and it happened. You got to move on. You got to go to the next one. You can't let that be in your head the next time that kid has the ball and he's coming to you. And those are important things to know, right? You got to learn from your mistakes, right? If you go in and you try to sell to the same person, hey, I got this new product. Hey, I got this new product. And you bring a box of donuts, and the woman who you're trying to sell to says, I'm on a diet, or I have diabetes. And you show up next time with donuts, you're a dingbat, right? But if you show up and she says, I'm on a diet, or I have diabetes, and you show up next time with a case of water, or sugar-free cookies, or fruit, or something like that, like, she's gonna say, he listened. That's huge. And that's part of the problem we have as a society, right? In sales, you would think all you want to do, Connor, is talk. I'm going to guess, and this is not scripted, that you make more sales by listening and reacting than actually selling.
2 ears, one mouth. It's as good as it gets.
And I write about that in my second book, which I am very excited to say is going. Hang on, I'm going back. I got to do a shameless plug for my book, Shit They Never Taught You in Law School. I got the hardcover and the soft cover. You can get them on Amazon. But my second book is sitting with the publishing company as we speak, and I write about that. 2 ears, 1 mouth for a reason, and we have to start listening. I'm guilty, right? I like to talk. I got to move fast. And it's like, all I want you to do is get to the point. Not you, Connor. I'm saying in general. Mm-hmm. Get to the point. Tell me what it is. And I don't listen. And I'm guilty. And I've worked on that, and I'm doing much better. And I'm consciously paying attention, because when I want to jump in, I stop. And I can see myself do it. So when I'm on Zoom, when I'm on phone calls, it'll be, I stop myself. So speaking of stopping, what we're going to do is we're going to stop here for 30 seconds. We're going to run a quick commercial so we can thank our sponsor. And then we're going to get back with Connor, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some medical sales. We're going to talk about lacrosse. And one of the things that near and dear to my heart is we might talk about the House versus NCAA ruling, if you know anything about that. And if you don't, totally cool. I can talk, but we'll bounce it around. I'm sure you have plenty of insight in it. So let's see the commercial and stay tuned. We'll be back in 30 seconds. And we are back. That was the shortest 30 seconds I think I've ever had. Yeah, my name is right. Yeah, my name is. It's 20 seconds. But my name is Jason Weiss. This is the Ask Jason Weiss show. I have with me Connor Harryman here today, a medical sales guy and a lacrosse guy. That's the best way to put it. Nothing I say today is considered legal advice. I am not your attorney. There is no attorney-client privilege. This is for entertainment and education purposes only. Listen to nothing I say except that you should go out and buy my book, Shit They Never Taught You in Law School. So when we left for the break and we had that stop, it was me talking about that I need to start listening more and speaking less. And that's one of the keys to success in sales. And as you said, 2 ears, 1 mouth. And it's very important. So again, you talked about your dad as your self-made man, the role model, and all of this. It's funny. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine this morning who does not have kids, and we were talking about D1 athletics. And because my son is going to go play lacrosse in college, and we're going to do all of that and great stuff. But we were talking about, the benefits of, playing on the D1 or the D3 level as compared to like club level. And he didn't understand that, being a D1 athlete, like now all of a sudden you're in, I don't want to say a fraternity because it's not a fraternity, but you're in a group, you're in a culture, you're in a clique, right? So if someone says to you, oh, Connor, and we're going to talk about this, you're quite fit. I know you do fitness training and I know you do all that kind of stuff, but, oh, did you play sports in college? And your response is going to be, yeah, I played lacrosse at Townsend or Rutgers or Bellarmine. Oh man, you're a D1 athlete too? I played D1 lacrosse, or I ran D1 track, or I did this. It's like an instant credibility. You did it just like that. So explain, like, do you really see that in the world, or is it just, the myth that us outsiders who didn't play D1 sports, it's that, it's something we believe and it shouldn't be believed in?
I think there's 2 ways to look at it. I was a little biased. I totally see there's different response when people find out you're a D1 athlete. Typically, that attests to these guys have handled tremendous stress, whether physically, mentally, balancing their workloads between school, film, lifting, cardio, practice. And you better believe we always got individual work for about 30 minutes to an hour every day. So, when you have guys going guys and girls, for 10 to 15 hours a day, the first thing you're going to immediately think is, man, this person works hard. And the reason I think there's a little D1 difference than like a D2, D3 is just the way they structure the importance of sports over academics. But I still think it's the same exact conversation. These people are dedicating so much time to their craft and to their academics that when you see them in the real world, there's a lot of correlation between highly successful individuals and having this athletic background. So I do see that in totality. However, I think with the new age and the way we're progressing, kids are starting to show their genius or their purpose and passion at a much younger age. It's almost diverting the necessity to become a collegiate athlete because they're trying to start a business at the age of 18 and dropping out of college, or they're going through college and they're realizing, hey, there's a niche market I can excel in. There's no point in me doing this. And then with social platforms, you have these NIL athletes nowadays, where it's not all focused on school. It's all about the sports. So I think you can kind of make an argument from both sides, but I'm still very biased towards there's a lot of value in becoming a collegiate athlete.
And I experienced on a smaller level, right? I was in a fraternity, an actual fraternity at the University of Florida when I went. And, when I say, oh, yeah, I was a ZBT, sometimes it's gotten me in the door for a meeting. It's gotten me in the door for a client. I mentioned Mark Noodleberg, right? So one of my best clients, close friends, I met him because Steve Noodleberg's book was on the back ledge of this guy's office. So when I walked in, I saw a Giants helmet and I saw Steve Noodleberg's book. And I went to the guy and I'm like, all right, I don't know where to start. As a fellow Giants fan, we suffer, for all these years. Or do I start with the book from Steve Noodleberg? And that got me the job. He basically flat out said, like, well, if you're working with Steve and you're a Giants fan, and there was more in there, but it was basically like, you're a good guy. You got it. So it is that commonality. It is that, let's go ahead and, we're members of the same, and again, fraternity, or that same sports group, or that same D1 philosophy, the D3 philosophy. It's alumni networks. It's all of these great things that will go ahead and get you that commonality. Now, one of the other things is we talked about sales. We talked a little bit about lacrosse, but when I was checking out some of your stuff on Instagram, there's also some fitness built in there. So what do you do in the fitness world? Is it just a hobby, or are you a coach, or what's going on with your fitness stuff?
A little bit of both. So when I lost my job in 2024, obviously I jumped into becoming a bartender waiter, but I've always been obsessed with fitness. And we now live in a society in which online fitness performance coaching, that's a standalone career where you can make as little as you want, or, there's really no ceiling. There's people making millions just doing this online. So, I thought I might as well give it a crack. I started doing a lot. I do amateur physique bodybuilding, planning on stepping on stage at some point. Completed some triathlons, done a couple marathons, that type of stuff. But I kind of put it on the back burner to focus mainly on the new job that I'm working in right now. But I think after the course, I'd say the last 6 to 7 weeks, I know this may not be pertinent, but I've lost about 15 pounds. I go up and down in my weight fluctuation on lean muscle mass and all these other things. So in its own right, it's actually a full-time job. Every single gram of protein, carbohydrates, fats, calories is on a scale before it goes in my body. So I take that discipline very serious. But taking it away from my personal interest and coaching it to make some money on the side, I think it's incredibly important in today's society on presentation of yourself. When I walk into the room, especially with my positions. I usually wear a nice suit, carry my chest tall, and I believe being in great shape puts a different type of impression than someone wearing khakis, a polo, and you can tell doesn't take care of themselves. I think being able to enter a room feel confident, it carries a different weight, especially with your audience.
And I think it also has to do with the fact that when you walk in and you're put together, you got a shirt and you got a tie and you look the part and you don't have a huge belly hanging over your belt and all of that. They say, look, this guy takes pride in the way that he or she looks and they care. And again, they put in that extra time, that extra effort, right? Look, I know the first thing that I started sacrificing, once I had kids and I was busy running at all the sports fields and I opened up my own firm and I was working, first thing that left was me going in and working out, right? It stopped. I wasn't lifting. I wasn't doing. I put on weight. I didn't like the way I looked. My wife got pregnant. It was great. She gave birth and we both started losing the weight together. So it was something good for both of us. And that's when I said to myself, look, I got to start looking good, not because of clients and all that, but I want to be around for, my son's entire life. Right? I want to be there for him. I want to, grow old and watch him play sports. And then when my daughter was born, it was instilled in me even more, right? I got to do it. I got to look good. And again, not looking good because I wanted to impress people, but just want to be healthy. I'm fortunate enough that, I just went for, a full blood panel and workup and all this. And other than needing to lose a couple of pounds, which I've actually done, I was good to go. And yes, I went and had all my blood work and my urinalysis at Quest because I know that's one of your places. But again, how the world perceives you about how you think about yourself is huge. And let me say that again, how the world perceives you on how you view yourself is huge. If you view yourself as I'm lazy, I'm old, I'm gray, I'm fat, that's what the world's going to think. But if you say I'm not lazy, I'm working at it, the gray, I'm happy that I have hair, and I'm not lazy because I'm out there, in the garden and walking around and doing my reps. Okay, maybe I don't go to the gym and I'm not getting strong, but I'm walking. I can walk 2, 3, 4 miles a day, feel great about it. And that is important. And again, what you reflect to the world is going to be reflected back to you. And I strongly believe that.
No, I think that was really eloquently put. It's always your internal perception that is expanded on everyone you come in encounter with.
Right. And look, all the time people will tell you, well, if you envision it, if you dream it, you want that red shiny sports car and you envision yourself sitting in a red shiny sports car, you're going to manifest and you're going to have it, right? Some people believe that, some people don't. But again, if you don't work on taking care of you, no one else is going to. And if I want to take care of my wife and my kids and my dog and my friends and my mom and all of that, well, if I don't take care of myself, how am I going to be there? And what do they tell you when you're on an airplane? I'm sure you do plenty of traveling for sales, right?
Oh, yeah.
When the safety mask comes down,
self first.
And then take care. So I'm not saying take care of you and then forget about everybody else. I'm saying take care of you so that you can assist other people. And that's what it's all about. Look, I've introduced Connor to my son. The two of them talk lacrosse. The two of them are coming up with some great things having to do with various different programs and trainings and outreaches and growing the sport and doing all of that. That's all because these are two guys that are tied together by a common thread, which is Chris Cousins and me, but truly it is the love for the game of lacrosse and helping other people.
And I think that's the most important piece at the end is I know what it's like. Chris knows what it's like. You know what it's like. To pursue that dream and it be right there as another person as who lived it, I feel like I wouldn't be doing myself, going back to my self-perception. I feel like I would be great in character if I didn't do everything I could to help someone try to achieve character.
There was a movie out, it's probably 15, 20 years now. It was called Pay It Forward. It was with Mel Gibson, the boy from he's been in a lot of movies. I forget what it is, and I want to say Jodie Foster. But it's all about paying it forward, doing for others, unasked. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't Mel Gibson. Maybe it wasn't. But that's what the whole movie was about. It was, hey, thank you. How can I ever repay you? Pay it forward. Give it to somebody else. Move it on. So it's like, when law school students reach out to me as, and they're saying, look, I want to bounce something off you. I'm thinking about going to law school. Maybe I can't afford to hire a coach or a consultant. Would you be willing to talk with me? And my answer is, if you're a student and you're pursuing and it's not legal advice, meaning like I got into a car accident, what do I do? Yeah, sure. Find me on the website. Find me on LinkedIn. Here's my work cell phone number. Get me. I'll answer those questions for you. I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you what law school's all about. I'll tell you, what to expect, because nobody was really there for me to do that. And I may not have gone to law school if I had someone like me.
See, I didn't know that. That's really cool. But it's looking at the thing like we just said. You're so willing to help others, but it also provides that value of self-fulfillment. And we need more people like that. We need more people who are willing to just talk, leverage networks, because like we discussed in the beginning, and using Kirk Cousins, you never, ever know when that 5-minute conversation you had in an elevator on a random Tuesday in North Carolina will yield some fruit. It's the gardening term that you use. Sometimes you're not going to get something in 2 weeks. You might have to sorry, I didn't even speak. You might have to water. You might have to plant a couple times. You might till the fields. But then 6 months, a year later, you're going to have a beautiful fruit.
And you know what? Sometimes, and I am a gardener, and it was as recent as today, sometimes I take the entire seed or start of growth and move it to a different section in my yard, or different sunlight, or different soil, or different nutrients, or dry it out and then replant it. And that all of a sudden will make the difference, right? I had a couple of seeds that I grow chili peppers, and I had a couple of chili pepper seeds that I replanted, and 2 of them took off. Great. I have more chili peppers growing, and 2 of them didn't. So what did I do? I moved one of them to another window. That one took off. I moved the other one to the other window. Didn't do anything. I planted a sunflower seed in with the chili seed. 2 days later, I had a sunflower growing and the chili seed. So you never know. So maybe the chili seed was lonely and wanted a friend and wanted somebody to talk to. You never know.
I kind of got a great segue from what you just said. So one of the things that I always hear, and you could also look at what I talked about in my sales experiences, you could always let the environment dictate your decisions. But the difference is changing where the seed is planted. You are voluntarily choosing the environment you are allowing to affect you. People always think it's the vice versa. It's you make decisions based on the environment. You don't let it dictate what you decide.
Now, I agree with that, right? I mean, but it's one of the things I talk about again in my book. You also need to know your audience, right? So if you were showing up and it was a high-end doctor's office, and it was all of this and all of that, you'll probably go in a shirt and a tie and a jacket, and you're probably not bringing donuts. You wouldn't do that. But if it was more of you were trying to sell to a gym, let's say, right? I don't know why they would need it, but let's just say you're trying to sell to a gym, you would go in maybe a little less formal of an attire, and you would bring body armor or smart water, or you would bring, high protein bars. Like, you got to know your audience. And part of that is do your research ahead of time, right? Never go to a meeting unprepared. Never don't show up to a job interview and don't know who you're meeting with. Know where somebody went to school. Always know something about the person on the other end, right? I couldn't tell you Connor's entire life story before I was here today. We've spoken. I knew about, lacrosse, but I was able to find out Towson, Rutgers, Bellarmine. I knew about those. I was able to know about, Chris Cousins. I was able to know about the fact that he's an avid lifter and likes to take care of himself. I didn't know that he tended bar and served at a restaurant. But again, the only reason I got him to tell me that is because I knew other things about him. So that's the other thing. Do your research. Never show up unprepared. You're better off not showing up and postponing something than showing up and doing a half-assed job, because you only get one chance to make a good first impression.
Honestly, reminds me of a quote from my high school football coach. So I played lacrosse and football and a bunch of other sports in Texas, where my family currently resides. So it's God family football out there. So it's pretty serious. But one thing that he instilled in me was the I just had an ADHD moment. Forgive me. Give me that back again. Oh my goodness.
So we were talking about that you need to be prepared. Yeah.
The 5 P's: prior, preparation, prevents, poor performance. I live and die by those 5 P's.
And I have something that I live by, and it's PPP, just 3, not the personal protection, stuff that they gave out during COVID. That was important stuff. But mine was plan, prepare, perform. And those are my 3. So look, plan for life, prepare for life, perform in life. That's huge. So I can't believe that we're at 42 minutes right now. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. But I always save my toughest, hardest question. Let's see. What are you currently streaming on one of the platforms? Which platform are you streaming it on, and what are you watching?
Ooh, we just finished Severance.
Okay.
Severance, I think, is on Prime and Apple TV.
And don't tell me, because that's the next one on my list to watch, because I was told it is mind-blowing. That much I know.
So it's one of those shows you got to give it time, because the first couple episodes, like up until 5 and 6, it's really slow. You're very confused on what's going on. However, it starts to layer in. Season 2 just concluded. So hopefully we have season 3 within the next 2 years. But it's a very cool premise of duality of individuals as a macro view. I think it's a really, really good watch.
So we got the guest pick today of Severance. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm actually going to be watching that. We just finished Paradise in My House. Very good, interesting. Couple of twists and some good stuff. And we also just watched Adolescence. The young man that was in there, who's in charge, who's the main character. Phenomenal performance. But it is a very serious and heavy series to watch. It's only 4 episodes, but it's heavy, it's deep, and if you don't want heavy and deep, do not watch it. But if you want something entertaining, you can. So again, I just want to thank you, Connor, for being here today. I want to thank you for chatting with my son. I want to thank you for taking care of Chris like I do. I want to thank Chris Cousins for introducing me to Connor. And I want to thank all of you for listening here. You can, Connor, if they want to find you, what's the best way to find you?
You can find me on any social platforms using my name, Connor Harryman.
Yep, that's how I found him. I typed in Connor Harryman. I found him on both LinkedIn and Instagram. Those are the 2 I use. So check him out. Talk sales, talk medical, talk lacrosse, talk staying fit, talk about anything you want. It's all good. Connor, thank you so much for being on the show. Cece and team, thank you so much for allowing me to be on this platform. Chris Cousins, thank you for introducing me to Connor. And everybody have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you again. This was awesome.